The Zephyrian Empire had perfected the art of conquest without firing a single plasma bolt. For 3 centuries they'd expanded across 47 star systems, using nothing more sophisticated than psychological manipulation and strategic misinformation. Why waste perfectly good antimatter on orbital bombardments when you could simply convince a species to hand over their planet with a smile? Their method was elegantly simple, almost insultingly so. Identify a species' fundamental weaknesses, exploit their social divisions, offer technological trinkets as friendship tokens, then watched as civilizations crumbled from within. The Thrakari had been manipulated through their obsession with honor codes. The Velonians fell prey to their greed for rare metals. The Korath were undone by their religious fervor, easily convinced that the Zephyrians were divine messengers. Each conquest followed the same predictable pattern, filed away in neat bureaucratic reports that Admiral Vexthul kept in his personal archives. Species encountered, psychological profiles compiled, weaknesses identified, manipulation protocols deployed, capitulation achieved. It was so routine that junior strategists could practically fill out the forms in advance. Which brings us, with delicious irony, to Earth. The third planet of an unremarkable yellow star had caught Zephyrian attention purely by accident. A deep space probe, collecting routine stellar cartography data, had detected unusual electromagnetic signatures emanating from the system. Further investigation revealed something that made even seasoned xenopsychologists do double takes at their scanner reading. The inhabitants of this backwater world were broadcasting their deepest secrets, their political machinations, their military strategies, and their most embarrassing personal moments directly into space for anyone with basic receiver technology to intercept. They called it entertainment programming and news media. Strategist Quindar had spent 3 months analyzing these transmissions, and his conclusions were so favorable that Admiral Vexthul initially suspected the data had been corrupted. According to Quindar's assessment, humans were not merely easy targets, they were practically begging to be conquered. Their political systems are in constant chaos, Quindar reported during the initial briefing, his crystalline features literally glowing with excitement. They maintain over 200 separate nation-states, each with conflicting interests and historical grievances. Their leaders change regularly through processes they call elections and coups, both of which appear to serve the same function of preventing any consistent long-term planning. The briefing room filled with the harmonic chuckling that passed for laughter among Zephyrians. Admiral Vexthul gestured for the strategist to continue. Furthermore, Quindar's excitement was palpable. They appear to be completely incapable of cooperation, even when facing existential threats. Their historical records show they fought over 600 major conflicts in the past century alone, often over resources they could have simply shared more efficiently. And their information security? Asked Vexthul, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Non-existent. They broadcast detailed analyses of their own psychological weaknesses through what they term social media. They've essentially created a comprehensive database of every individual's personal vulnerabilities and made it publicly accessible. Our psychological warfare division is calling it the greatest intelligence gift in galactic history. The Admiral allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. After the surprisingly difficult Korath campaign, those religious zealots had taken nearly 8 months to properly manipulate. The prospect of a straightforward conquest was refreshing. Earth's preliminary assessment suggested they could complete the entire operation in 6 months, possibly 4 if the humans proved as emotionally unstable as their broadcasts suggested. Recommended approach? Vexthul inquired, already mentally drafting his promotion request. Classic benevolent contact protocol, Quindar replied smoothly. We present ourselves as peaceful explorers seeking cultural exchange. Offer them basic medical technology and clean energy solutions to establish trust. Then we begin introducing carefully designed social media algorithms to amplify their existing divisions. Within months, they'll be too busy fighting each other to notice us systematically taking control of their infrastructure. It was textbook manipulation, the kind of strategy that had worked flawlessly 47 times before. What could possibly go wrong? 3 weeks later, the Zephyrian diplomatic vessel Harmonious Purpose achieved orbit around Earth. Their arrival was carefully orchestrated, visible enough to be detected by human instruments but non-threatening in appearance. The ship itself was a masterpiece of psychological design, its graceful curves and softly pulsing lights calculated to evoke feelings of wonder rather than fear. First contact proceeded exactly according to protocol. The humans responded with a mixture of panic, excitement, and bureaucratic confusion that perfectly matched Zephyrian predictions. Various world leaders immediately began positioning themselves as the primary contact point with the aliens, each convinced they could gain exclusive access to advanced technology. Admiral Vexthul found their behavior simultaneously amusing and pathetic. During the initial diplomatic meetings, human representatives from different nations actually attempted to negotiate separate agreements, apparently unaware that Zephyrian translation technology allowed them to monitor all communications simultaneously. "Greetings, people of Earth," Vexthul addressed the hastily assembled United Nations Assembly, his words carefully modulated to project wisdom and benevolence. "We come in peace, seeking to establish cultural and technological exchange between our civilizations." The human response was exactly what psychological profiles had predicted: immediate fascination with Zephyrian technology, desperate attempts to gain exclusive access to advanced knowledge, and barely concealed preparations for the inevitable backstabbing between nations that would follow. Within hours of first contact, Zephyrian communication intercepts detected at least 12 separate attempts by various governments to secretly negotiate private deals. Captain Elena Rodriguez of the newly formed Earth Defense Coalition seemed to be one of the few humans attempting to coordinate a unified response, which made her useful for Zephyrian purposes. Her obvious frustration with political infighting provided an excellent entry point for manipulation. Captain Rodriguez, Vexthul approached her after a particularly contentious diplomatic session. "You seem to be one of the few of your species who understands the importance of unity in the face of opportunity." Rodriguez studied him with sharp brown eyes that held more intelligence than most humans had displayed so far. "Admiral, if I may speak frankly, my species has a long history of making first impressions that don't accurately reflect our capabilities." An interesting response, though it fit within acceptable parameters for human unpredictability. Vexthul filed it away as a minor curiosity and proceeded with the manipulation protocol. Over the following weeks, Zephyrian operatives began implementing their standard division tactics. Carefully crafted information was leaked to different human factions, designed to increase mutual suspicion and competition. Advanced medical scanners were provided to some nations but not others, ostensibly due to limited production capacity. Social media algorithms were subtly modified to amplify existing political tensions. The results were unexpected. Rather than increasing division, human nations began displaying unprecedented levels of cooperation. Intelligence sharing between traditional rivals increased dramatically. Military forces that had been positioned for potential conflicts suddenly redeployed in coordinated defensive patterns. Most puzzling of all, human social media activity showed a marked decrease in political hostility and a corresponding increase in scientific collaboration. "This is outside normal parameters," Quindar reported during their weekly assessment meeting, his crystalline features dim with confusion. "Our psychological manipulation protocols are being implemented correctly, but human response patterns don't match any previous species we've encountered." Admiral Vexthul frowned at the data streams flowing across his command display. According to every metric they used to measure social cohesion, humanity was becoming more unified rather than more divided. Their economic systems were stabilizing, their scientific output was increasing exponentially, and their military forces were coordinating with efficiency that would be impressive even by Zephyrian standards. "Perhaps they require a more direct approach," suggested Quindar. "We could accelerate the timeline, introduce more advanced technology with built-in dependency mechanisms." "Proceed," Vexthul authorized, though something about the situation felt fundamentally wrong. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never encountered a species that responded to manipulation by becoming stronger. The acceleration of contact protocols should have been the final phase of human capitulation. advanced manufacturing technologies were introduced, along with energy systems that would theoretically make Earth dependent on Zephyrian maintenance and raw materials. Communication networks were upgraded with Zephyrian technology that included carefully hidden monitoring and control capabilities. Within days, every piece of advanced technology the Zephyrians had provided was reverse-engineered, improved upon, and mass-produced using entirely human resources. Dr. Marcus Webb, the lead researcher on what humans were calling the Xenotech Integration Project, presented his findings to Captain Rodriguez with the kind of casual competence that was starting to make Admiral Vexthul very nervous. "The power generation systems they gave us are quite clever," Webb reported, apparently unaware that his conversation was being monitored by Zephyrian intelligence. "The dependency mechanisms are particularly elegant, hidden protocols that would gradually degrade performance unless regularly updated with their quantum encryption keys." "And you've neutralized them?" Rodriguez asked. "Oh, we bypassed them entirely 3 days ago. Genuine engineering figured out how to replicate their quantum matrices using modified superconductor arrays. We're actually getting about 15% better efficiency than the original design." Admiral Vexthul stared at the intelligence report for several long moments, experiencing an emotion that Zephyrian psychology texts classified as concerned bewilderment. No species in galactic history had successfully reverse-engineered Zephyrian technology, let alone improved upon it, within mere days of first contact. "Sir," his communication officer interrupted his contemplation, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. Captain Rodriguez is requesting a private meeting." The meeting took place aboard the Harmonious Purpose, in Admiral Vexthul's personal quarters. Rodriguez arrived alone as requested, though Zephyrian scanners detected enough concealed technology on her person to outfit a small reconnaissance team. Curiously, none of it appeared to be weapons. "Admiral," Rodriguez began without preamble, "I think it's time we discussed the real purpose of your visit to Earth." Vexthul maintained his diplomatic expression, though he felt the first stirrings of genuine alarm. "I'm not certain what you mean, Captain. We have been entirely transparent about our desire for peaceful cultural exchange." Rodriguez smiled, and there was something in that expression that reminded Vexthul uncomfortably of his own species' predatory hunting displays. "Admiral, my species may appear chaotic and primitive to you, but we're not stupid. We've been monitoring your surveillance activities for the past 4 months." The words hit Vexthul like a physical blow. "That's impossible. Our reconnaissance protocols are undetectable to most species, yes," Rodriguez interrupted smoothly. "Unfortunately for you, humans developed comprehensive electromagnetic spectrum analysis during our industrial period. Your invisible observation drones have been lighting up our sensor networks like Christmas trees since before you even made official contact." Vexthul's throat constricted as the implications began cascading through his mind. If humans had detected their preliminary surveillance, then everything, every assessment, every psychological profile, every strategic assumption was potentially compromised. Furthermore, Rodriguez continued with devastating calm, "Our xenopsychology team analyzed your species' historical contact patterns with other civilizations. The Thurakari were kind enough to share their experiences when we reached out to them last month." "You contacted the Thurakari?" Vexthul's voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "And the Valonians, and the Karath, and about 23 other species in your former empire. Fascinating conversations. It seems you have quite the reputation as master manipulators." Rodriguez leaned back in her chair with casual confidence. "Though I have to say, your psychological profiles of humanity were impressively inaccurate." The room seemed to spin around Admiral Vexthul as 3 centuries of strategic certainty crumbled beneath him. "What do you want?" "What we've wanted from the beginning," Rodriguez replied. "Genuine cooperation, cultural exchange, shared technological development. You know, all those things you claimed to offer before you started trying to psychologically manipulate us into slavery." "And if we refuse?" Rodriguez's smile widened slightly. "Admiral, you're currently sitting in a spacecraft that has been effectively neutralized by technology reverse-engineered from your own systems. Your FTL communications have been quietly monitored and occasionally edited for the past 6 weeks. And your entire fleet is currently surrounded by what your sensors are probably reading as empty space, but which is actually about 40,000 cloaked human vessels, using adaptive camouflage techniques we developed by studying your surveillance drones. Vexthal's emergency communication to his bridge confirmed his worst fears. Somehow, impossibly, a species they had assessed as primitive and chaotic had not only detected their manipulation efforts, but had turned those very efforts against them with surgical precision. How? He asked, the question barely audible. Admiral, you made the same mistake that every other species seems to make when they first encounter humanity, Rodriguez explained with what sounded almost like sympathy. You confused chaos with incompetence, and competition with inability to cooperate. Yes, we argue among ourselves constantly. Yes, our political systems are messy and inefficient. Yes, we broadcast our personal business to anyone willing to listen. She paused, letting the implications sink in. But we've been doing all of that while simultaneously developing nuclear weapons, landing on other planets, creating global communication networks, and maintaining the most comprehensive intelligence-gathering apparatus in known galactic history. Did you really think a species that paranoid and technologically advanced wouldn't notice when someone started spying on them? The final revelation came when Director Amara Singh, the apparently mild-mannered head of Earth's newly formed Xenological Affairs Department, arrived for what she called surrender negotiations. She brought with her a comprehensive analysis of Zephyrian psychology, culture, and technological capabilities that was more thorough than anything in their own databases. Your species has some fascinating psychological blind spots, Singh observed as she presented her findings to the assembled Zephyrian leadership. You're so focused on manipulating others that you never developed adequate defenses against manipulation yourselves. Classic predator tunnel vision. She gestured to a holographic display showing Zephyrian fleet movements over the past 6 months. For example, you've been so busy trying to position yourselves for our conquest that you never noticed we've been feeding you carefully crafted intelligence about human military capabilities, political stability, and technological development. Everything you think you know about Earth has been selectively edited to support the conclusions we wanted you to reach. Admiral Vextal stared at the data in growing horror. Every assessment, every strategic decision, every tactical movement had been based on information that humans had carefully crafted to lead them into increasingly vulnerable positions. The beautiful irony, Singh continued with obvious enjoyment, is that our actual capabilities are far more impressive than anything we let you discover. Did you know that human theoretical physicists solved faster-than-light communication 3 years ago? Or that our materials science division has been working on self-replicating construction systems since before you arrived? We've been very careful to keep those developments out of our public broadcasts. But why? Quindar asked, his voice hollow with defeat. Why the elaborate deception? You could have simply destroyed our fleet when we first arrived. Because, Captain Rodriguez answered, unlike every other species you've encountered, humans actually do want genuine cooperation and cultural exchange. We just wanted to make sure you understood that the relationship would be between equals, not between masters and servants. The aftermath was, in its own way, more devastating to Zephyrian pride than any military defeat could have been. The humans offered them a choice: genuine partnership with full cultural and technological exchange, or immediate departure from Earth space, with a stern warning never to return. They chose partnership, though it required a fundamental restructuring of everything they thought they knew about interstellar relations. 6 months later, Admiral Vextal found himself serving as a liaison officer aboard the first joint human Zephyrian exploration vessel, watching human engineers collaborate with his own technical specialists to develop new propulsion systems that neither species could have created alone. You know, Captain Rodriguez commented during one of their regular briefings, your psychological manipulation techniques actually work quite well when applied ethically. Our diplomatic corps has learned some fascinating negotiation strategies from your cultural databases. Vexthal managed what he hoped was a gracious smile. I confess, Captain, that human educational methods have proven equally illuminating, though I still don't understand how your species manages to function with such apparent chaos in your social systems. That's the thing about chaos, Admiral, Rodriguez replied with familiar amusement. It's only chaotic if you don't understand the underlying patterns. Humans have been managing organized chaos for thousands of years. We call it civilization. As the joint exploration vessel jumped to hyperspace, carrying the first truly cooperative human-alien crew in galactic history, Admiral Vexthul reflected on the profound lesson his species had learned. They had spent 3 centuries believing that superior technology and psychological manipulation made them masters of the galaxy. It turned out that the most dangerous species in the cosmos was one that had spent its entire evolutionary history learning to outsmart itself. The humans, it seemed, had been practicing psychological warfare on each other for so long that an external attempt at manipulation was merely amateur hour. They had not only recognized the Zephyrian tactics immediately, but had used them as a learning opportunity to develop even more sophisticated methods of their own. In the end, the species that thought it had perfected the art of manipulation discovered that humanity had turned manipulation itself into just another form of communication, complex, layered, and ultimately directed toward building something better than what either species could achieve alone. The Zephyrians had come to Earth expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they found teachers who specialized in turning weaknesses into strengths and competition into cooperation. It was, Admiral Vexthul mused as he reviewed the daily reports of unprecedented scientific breakthroughs emerging from human-Zephyrian collaboration, exactly the kind of ironic reversal that humans seem to find endlessly entertaining. They had indeed been easy to manipulate, they had simply been manipulated into becoming the manipulators, and had enjoyed every moment of it.